All right, welcome everyone to Kitchen Table Talk, the Break The Stigma Inc. podcast, where real, unfiltered conversation about first responders and mental health and wellness happen. I'm Michael Long, firefighter, paramedic, and founder of Break The Stigma Inc. This show is a place for all of us as firefighters, EMTs, police officers, dispatchers, and other medical professionals to pull up a chair, share stories, and to talk about parts of the job that no one else gets to see. Here we're going to laugh, we'll reflect, we'll learn, we'll remind each other that it's okay to not be okay. And because mental health is just as vital as your physical health, and together we can break the stigma. So grab a cup of coffee, take a seat, and join us at the table for this episode of Kitchen Table Talk. And as always, like I said, I'm your host, Michael Long, and our wonderful co-host, Nick Robben.
Welcome everybody to Tim Hussero's House of Medicine. He was kind enough to give us a space that we could kind of broaden our horizons. We're going 4 wide today. So we got a couple of super cool guests and guys that Mike and I work with and share a lot of similarities in how we think about the job, and not only that, but our mental health and what's best to do for those around us. So we'll start with some introductions. To my right is Nate Miller.
Nate Miller, been in the fire service for almost 18 years now. Started out as a volunteer right out of high school in 2007. Then jumped over with these guys where we work now about 8 years ago. Currently serving the role as a captain at our current organization. And been in that role for about 6 months. So new captain, trying to figure it out. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
And to our left, the well-known, ever-deserving Mike Robinson.
Hey guys, I'm Mike. No relation, same name. I've been in fire service about 25 years. Started in a young age, but I kind of grew up around it. My father was a volunteer fire chief. I started as a volunteer. Went career a little over 10 years ago. Was hired on as a captain down at a fire department down south of us. Spent 5-6 years there. Moved on to another department, and then made my way up into St. Louis County. I'm currently in a department with these guys now. I've been here about 4 years. I'm a private firefighter. Started back down at the bottom, just living life.
I think one thing that's neat about the group we've assembled today is we have a lot of backgrounds in the fire service, but a relatively short time with where we work now. And the biggest thing that we've seen in the short time that these guys have been with us is the amount of change that we've gone through, as a department. And I'm not just talking about buildings and trucks, but who we are as a culture. And I think we've had one of the most rapid culture changes in the fire service that you can see. And in working other places, a lot of times changing the culture for the better is a very slow moving train. Whereas since these guys have showed up with us, and a great credit to them, they have been a huge part of that change. And one thing that we wanted to kind of jump off and start the podcast with is, how does your department culture affect your mental health?
And that culture is everything on this place. And a culture of department really does affect mental health in the aspect of, if you're in a place that you don't want to be, the culture is terrible, you don't want to work there anymore. And coming from a couple different departments and moving into this area, and fortunately these guys put a lot of groundwork before I even came over, and what they did and what they were able is really revitalized my career personally, and growing as a firefighter and as a paramedic as well, and has taken me to another level what it is, because of being allowed and the groundwork that they have done to be who I am and to expand. I mean, I started in a completely other area with no intentions of coming up into this area and starting my own path. And it really, was a troubling time there for a little bit, and, went through some things with myself, and was able to grow. And once they guys got a hold of me and pretty much told me I need to apply here, and we've got good things going. Once I came over, man, we just took off, and we've blown past all expectations of a thought where we were going as a culture. And just maintaining positivity in the firehouse and being that positive attitude, and how infectious it can be through one another. And we feed off each other as we grow. And it's resounding, the efforts we have, and just the lengths we've come in such a short time.
Yeah, I think you look at the last 7-8 years and the progress that we've made, and how we've shifted our culture from one direction to another. it really kind of brings it back full circle. Like, you create a culture by design. It's not by chance, right? And a lot of people put in a lot of time and effort into coming up with the design of what we wanted our culture to look like, what we wanted to emphasize, the values that we wanted to place on our culture. And then that's one aspect of it, right? Coming up with these ideas, what we want this to look like, but then morphing that into actual reality. And that's hard. That takes a lot of work. And sometimes that's bringing on new people that value those same things and making sure you're hiring the right people for the right spots. And I think that that's over the last 5 years, we've seen a huge influx in new employees that have come along to our organization that really do mold and emphasize those same values that we talked about in creating a culture. And when it comes to the progress we made, I think a lot of it is due to that we've been able to attract people that have similar mindsets, similar values, and those common goals that help us kind of drive that culture forward.
Yeah, it's almost like setting that standard of who you want to be, and then going out and finding those things to make that standard. And what that ends up doing is it makes a place everybody wants to be there, everybody wants to work, which overall will improve, some aspect of your mental health. There's not a lot we can control outside of work, but for those 48 hours at a time that you're together, if that standard is, hey, this is where we need to be and this is what makes it, good for everybody, then, that is what improves the workplace.
I think too, like when you bring people with like-minded values on, like, you just get that common core of you care about each other, right? When you care about each other, that only heightens your level of awareness for each other's mental health, where everybody's sitting at personally. Like, I have a personal relationship with you guys, and I think that's a foundation of our culture that we've been trying to build for so long, is a group of individuals that actually care about each other outside of just the 48 hours that we're with each other at the engine house.
And as the newest guy coming into this department, and that's been tenfold for what it's done for me, myself, at a career and mental health wise, is you got good officers that care about you, that want you to succeed, that want to feed you what you need to grow and know when to back off, because as they get to know you, they know how you are. And we all struggle with things going through, and everybody's fighting their own demons at a time. And having that good group of core guys that know you out of work and in work really helps, because they can tell when something's not right going on. I mean, you got chiefs and captains and lieutenants in our career in our department right now that do truly care about one another. And when you guys take those roles, and then the officers, as privates, we get to be a little more selfish with ourselves, and we get to try to do as much as we can to benefit ourselves. But as you take that role of being that company officer, you're at a point where now it's not just about you. It's about your driver that day, or your ambulance guys that day, or whoever needs to be your backstepper. And, are they in the right mindset to move forward? And you guys got to use that judgment as officers to put them in a correct position, or have them in a correct position to be best beneficial for that shift.
I think you guys have nailed a lot of the talking points that we hit in previous ones, just in quick passing of other conversations of formal and informal leaders, crew dynamics, culture. And then Nate, you brought up one that we've talked about, I think, in the last episode, that I'm a firm believer in, is like treating your department or your crews as a family, where we don't just do things together for 48 hours. We find ways to get together outside of work. So that way, if we learn each other's personalities, we learn each other's traits, we learn each other, the way people react. And if I walk in and Mike's off one day and I can tell his attitude's different, or his mood's different, or his tone's even different, I can just look at him and be like, dude, what the fuck's going on? Like, what's going on? Versus if I have no idea how he acts outside of engine house, I might not notice those changes. And that can lead to a detrimental thing. But it comes from, like you said, it comes from that formal side of it too. But Robben brought it up in the last one about the informal leadership and we have a lot of informal leaders, I believe. And there's a lot of informal leaders within the fire service and EMS and police that they just have that presence about them, that they take command of a room, they take command of a situation, even though they have their brass doesn't meet their stature. But I think it's one of those things that it's not a one person job. When it comes to changing a culture and changing an attitude, or changing from a negative to a positive, you can have the greatest leader in the world leading, but if you have 50, 60, 70 people below it that don't buy into it or don't
Right.
believe in that same culture. That's where those informal leaders and those good formal leaders have to combine. And then privates being willing to say, okay, yeah, this is the direction we want to go. So I think that's a challenge I think anyone faces, and perspectives from all around the table here is, what do you do when you start to see that culture change, but you meet resistance from individuals, or you meet resistance from different crews, or how do you address the positive culture changes that someone may not believe is a positive culture change?
Yeah, that's hard. I think one, staying consistent and plugged into the mission is super important, right? Like we know where we want to end up, and having that vision and that foresight, like here's where we want to be, and not letting some of the recliner snipers and the naysayers kind of bring you back down. Like you may listen to it, and you may have to kind of be you got to be cognitively aware of it, but that doesn't mean you have to buy into it. That doesn't mean you have to let it affect your day. Maybe it's a short period of time that you deal with it, and then it's right out the window, and you're on to your day and the rest of how you want that shift to look like. Like you create that 48 hours while you're there, and when you're building relationships with your people outside of work, you have that trust. Trust is a huge aspect of this entire dynamic, right? When you're building relationships, you're developing trust with individuals. I think that's how you can kind of create the longevity of what you want your culture to look like. And I think that's a big part of it. When you build that relationship, that rapport, then you know that it's going to survive whatever it is that the naysayers may say for a short period of time, because you have the longer picture ahead of the entire thing.
And having a good foundation of that, and building and having that positive attitude, that push and that go and that drive on your end of it to create that culture. We all go through our ups and downs, like the ocean and the waves of, we're great, we're ready to go, we'll drop down on that low, we'll come back out of it, we'll drop down on that low, and we all kind of do it. If we can get on a pattern where we're all not in that same pattern of that wave and lull, somebody's always going to be in there with that positive attitude, that better outlook of what's going on, and see and be able to drive and push, not so much as a pressure, but as an example of what needs to happen and how you do and come on there. We all have our bad days. We all have our strong problems, and we all have done it throughout our careers. And I was fortunate in this area, this department, and to come in and the upswing of the culture shift, and where I was 6 years ago. I mean, as you guys know, I'm pretty into the job now. I love doing what I do. I wouldn't trade a single day for it. I mean, I was at a different place 6 years ago. I mean, you guys wouldn't have recognized me.
You had a big beard.
I had a big beard.
60 pounds heavier.
Yeah, I was probably 30, 40 pounds heavier at the time. And I mean, that's not saying much, but I graduated. I was like 140 pounds when I graduated high school. And
Yeah, me too. I'm still 140.
A svelte 140.
But I mean, into that end of it too, I can go into, I mean, I dealt with my own style of burnout, and I was burnt from the job, and I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have a direction. I mean, essentially, I was ready to quit and go drive a UPS truck, because that was the only outlook I had. I mean, I struggled with that. I had a bad call response year with back to back and a couple pediatric calls, some weird, I had 6 months of 7 or 8 once in a lifetime calls I hit, and saw it, and I was having trouble in my department. I didn't have that support staff with me, because we were at a department that was pretty much a stepping stone. So every guy built a career with, and built a camaraderie with, were out the door. They were promoting to another position. They were going over here. They were switching shifts. And, here I was at a brand new, I mean, I was still a captain down there, but had a brand new driver. I had a brand new backstepper. And I had been with them maybe 3 months, and I didn't know where I was going with my career. I thought, oh, okay, if I just switched the department and going in there, and then I made the switch, made the call. I thought it was going to be better for myself and my mental health, and went to a place that was just terrible for me, and it just put me down to this hole. I mean, if I hadn't got a call from one of the departments I went to before I went to you guys, I mean, I would be probably on the street driving for UPS, delivering mail, doing something completely different, because I hated what I had become. I felt myself becoming complacent. I felt the struggles. I didn't know how to come out of the struggles. I didn't have something like an organization or coworkers or anybody to go talk to about it at the time. And I just didn't, I was lost. I mean, I didn't know what to do. fortunately, I got a phone call from a fresh start again, and I'm like, okay, one more fresh start, and that led me into meeting these guys through different aspects of the career, and being, hey, you should come apply here. And I tossed and turned. I mean, I like tossed and turned for about 4 months even applying, but I wouldn't trade where I came from, how I got here for the world, just because of where I'm at now and how much of a different person I am now. Because I feel like I've come out on the other side for better on the aspect of being able to see some things from a different perspective, more from the 10,000-foot view, from the 100-foot view, and it's helped me really grow as a person, not only as a firefighter, paramedic.
I think you made a really good point there too, is that a lot of people, when we think of mental health in general, and especially in the first responder field, we always look at the extreme side of it of like, and for example, myself, where you go straight down the rabbit hole of darkness and you end up, all drugged out, drunk, and making horrible decisions, and like your life's on the line at any given point in the day. But there's another side of it that people don't think about, is we only focus on the extremes. And like Mike's story of wanting to leave and go be a UPS driver, that's an extreme to me. If you're willing to leave a career that you loved at one point, and you don't really know why, other than you hate the person you're turning out to be, you don't know what your purpose is anymore, your passion's gone, that's just as much an extreme crisis as someone that's suicidal or is bent on substance abuse or whatever. Because the problem is, in like how we've addressed mental health in general as a country and as a fire service or as first responders, is we don't address it until we get to the far ends of it. Well, if I can tell, in 5 years, if Mike starts getting burnt out again and he's telling me he's going to be a UPS driver, I'm not going to wait till he quits to be a UPS driver to be like, hey man, what can we do to help? What are we not doing for you? And that's, I think, the problem. And what we talk about a lot is that proactive and preventative, and being able to get and talk about it, having crews that are willing to have those conversations. And I'm going to pick on you, Nate, a little bit, because I know you just love to be the spotlight. Totally. But like we talked about it in the last one, is having those formal and informal leaders. And we talked about the conversation of if you know your crew well enough and you have those conversations and you're that officer that's willing to have those open forum conversations about mental health and how things are going, if you get a new crew and you're building that rapport with them and you're having those conversations, I always say the biggest concern of these officers that are afraid of that topic is what's about to come out of somebody's mouth. Sure. And like from a new officer perspective, like, because you got the glory also of dealing with me when I was going through my stuff. So you got to see some extremes, but say you start opening that forum and those conversations starts coming up. I mean, how comfortable are you as a new officer versus a veteran officer to handle those? Or would you lean on an informal leader?
Yeah, I would for sure lean on an informal leader. I think that's, like your case and just cases like that in general, don't have a ton of experience dealing with that, right? So you have to use all your resources around you. And I think that's a big part of having that rapport, that relationship with somebody on both sides, to where they trust you and you trust them, so they know that they can bring some of that stuff to you. And it's your job as the company officer to be an advocate for your people. So with those two things in mind, like, you want to create that bridge to have the dialogue or the conversation in the very beginning, right? Because the earlier that you can come across that stuff and have a real conversation with somebody about where they're really at, I think the easier it is to kind of go down different paths to help get them in the right spot. Yeah. I think that's a huge part of it. So then as it all kind of escalates and evolves, I think it's naturally going to be a little bit uncomfortable for anybody in that spot, because it's just not something that we're used to dealing with. The calls that we run every day, the vehicle accidents, the house fires, EMS calls. We're used to all of that stuff. We're not used to your buddy going, hey, I'm having a really hard time with this, and here's where I'm actually at, and being just 100% transparent. It's like, whoa, what do I do with that now?
Yeah,
and I think that's what's...
have a gun in your truck.
Yeah. We're going to bring that up.
I think that speaks a lot of where we're at as a career now versus where we were 5-10 years ago as well. Because, maybe even longer, because as an officer back then, it was a hard time to admit when I didn't know anything, because I'm supposed to be that guy. You're supposed to be that guy. Yeah. And I see my crews having a hard time. Do I confront it? They won't come to me. Do I not want to do it? But now it's more into the mix of, it's okay to ask for help in all aspects of it. Hey, I don't know what's going on here. can you help me figure out what I need to do with my guy? You don't have to be specific of what's going on.
Right.
You know, be like, hey, firefighter, blah, 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 or hey, I got a guy on my crew that's struggling right now, and going to your peers and, you know, peers that have a little more experience in that end of it. What would you do in this situation where you're able to gather information? You have organizations like Break the Stigma and other ones out there that are out there willing to help and have an idea of what's needed to be done. And we have more access to that now than we had, I mean, even 4 years ago. I mean, we're at a point, and that's what happened, you know, fortunately, unfortunately, with your incident.
Pros and cons.
Pros and cons.
It weighed itself out.
And
it wouldn't be
it's
here
really,
if,
and you may not be, you've opened eyes to so many people in this career, in our department in general, and not only our department, but in our area, our state, and over the country, because you've been able to reach out and affect, and they're able to take what you've done, what you've been through, and what you've built, because you take one passion into another. And that's how we are with our autism. And
It's that wonderful over-obsessive.
Yeah, you know, we're pouring into it.
Don't half-ass anything.
You're able to be out and be a relying, because, you know, if I was in an office position, or these two in their officer positions having an issue with their guy, they're able to reach out and hey, this is what I got going on. Do you have any suggestions? Because you have context not only around here, you have context around the country that could build something off of.
Yeah, no, I think that's a solid point. And Nate has something to say. I can see it out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah,
but I wanted to pick on him and Robben one more time, so I'm gonna let Nate speak, and then I'm gonna.
I just want to point something out here. The amount of passion that Mike Robinson has brought to the table has actually changed his color on camera.
Well, they've noticed the little flickers. It's trying to auto adjust the lighting.
Yeah, but he is he is
tone.
red hot with intensity over today's topic.
No, I was just going to say, I think that's where it's important to have that Rolodex of people that you can kind of go to, you know, your mentors and your resources, like the peer support group that we've been working on in-house, and some of the checks and balances that have come in place, a large part into what you went through at that time, because there really wasn't a game plan or a play to run with dealing with something like that. That now, as a result of it, as tough as all that was that you're going through, now, okay, maybe we got a play that we can run, right? So we can pull that from our playbook and be like, okay, here's step one, here's step two, here's
Sports
step
analogies.
3. You're big on your sports analogies. So, but like, it's so true. Like, you got to have a place to start. And if you don't have a place to start, it makes running the play really difficult. So, and I think that, you know, having your mentors, having some of the resources available to you as well, outside of where you work, like at other organizations, at other points of the state, that you can call and be like, here's what I'm dealing with. What have you dealt with? What is your advice? And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of people that have been like, I dealt with something just like that. Here's how we went about it. Here's what worked. Here's what didn't work. And that can kind of help hopefully get you shifted in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing and I learned that when I was out in Maryland and post-Maryland doing all of these conferences and things like that, is you think you're the first one to ever deal with a situation. And then once that conversation starts with the right group of people, you're like, holy shit, there's 30 of us.
Yeah.
And that's just in this room. So it is knowing, it's not even knowing who's available, but also who you can entrust yourself with. Is you might call a mentor or somebody that you don't even know they dealt with a similar situation, even mental health. You'd be surprised, if you called, an old captain or something and said, hey, I'm struggling with burnout or whatever. Somebody you trust, and you thought they were this rock solid, always on the job, never had any issues. They always had that perfect persona about them. And then you call them and say, hey, this is where I'm at. What do you think I should do? And they're like, oh, I've been there.
Yeah,
I've been there.
Yeah.
This is how I got through
I
it.
know exactly how you feel.
Or this is how I didn't get through it. Or you took my route and you go just start drinking yourself to death. But I learned a lot of negatives.
Well, I think the interesting thing about your case was, it was one-off. You were still new to us, and your relationships with us were still pretty new. So from where we were to where we are now, and everything we learned about what went right, what went wrong, what things you can't control. I think there were so many parts of your crisis that were completely uncontrollable. There was, nothing that we could do about it. And, the places that you ended up because of your actions, and we just had to sit back and, watch this horror film play out. But at the same time, we were learning so much. So now, 5 years later, where we can come back and now we look at things and talk about these things out loud of, hey, these were some of the signs and symptoms, and they may do things that you can't control that, you know, disappoint you or upset you as somebody trying to help. And I think that was a lot for the guys that were. It wasn't me. I didn't step up.
You were there.
I was going through my own things, and I like where I came into the conversation after Mike was better, and I understand what was going on with him, and I understand that there was no way to stop it or get you to listen. I think that's one of the hardest parts about dealing with somebody in crisis. You know, day to day, you can't babysit them, and they're gonna do things, you know, that are gonna shock you, and it's just you have to have that end goal in mind. And you know, I think Nate learned from me, and we kind of came up with it together. When you're an informal leader or even an officer, you know, dealing with somebody like that, you have to be a bully for positivity and try and match, you know, what they're doing energy wise. Because if you just sit back and let them take the reins,
You see how angry I was?
right, they're gonna.
I was pretty angry.
Yeah, they're gonna run. They're gonna run right through.
No, he would match the anger.
Yeah. And I think that's the hard part is people in crisis are so uncontrollable. And the whole mission of Break the Stigma is to get there before it reaches uncontrollable or before it's something that we can't stop. Because there's other mental health crises that people get into where they tell no one until it's too late.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would much rather, you know, fight drunk Mike on the side of the highway at his truck than, you know, get a call that something, you know, terrible has happened to Mike. So
I think we're in something.
there
It was on the road.
Yeah, it was on the road.
I think.
But
I don't know. Nate set me up. So.
They
I think I blamed him for that one.
Yeah, they
I feel like
ambushed-
you maybe did a little bit.
Yeah. But that's the problem. Exactly what you're saying, and not to cut you off, is that irrational thought of like that night that we're talking about, like I blamed everyone that was there but myself. In all reality, the two of you that were there were truly there trying to protect me,
Right.
From even worse consequences than what were coming my way.
Yeah.
And and like we talked about in the last one is, you know, that one individual that was there could have easily just kicked the shit out of me for the fun of it because I was calling him out in the middle of the street.
I didn't know you guys are both measuring up. You guys are matching each other's energy, and I was like, "Oh, what do I do?"
Yeah, Nate's over there panicking, like, oh my god. But it's one of those things. It's like trying to rationalize with somebody in that state of mind is nearly impossible. And I can say that now, knowing my own story, but also the amount of crisis interventions we've done since we started Break the Stigma, is we've handled quite a few of them, and I will tell you, it's exhausting. Like from someone that's in a perspective of that personal perspective of I've been through it, I know exactly what's going through somebody's mind, I know exactly what they're feeling, and then I'm still trying to rationalize with them, and I'm getting angry at them because they're not listening to me. But then I picture myself on the other side, I was like, oh my God, I was doing the same damn thing. Like, but it's so much easier, and this is what's been great about Break the Stigma over the last couple of years as we've grown, is my phone started out with crisis interventions. People were calling me when they were like, I need to go to Maryland, I need this, I'm losing my job, I'm losing this, and now we're getting the phone calls of like, hey man, my mood's been off. I usually drink a couple times a week. Now I'm drinking every night. Like, I just need to go talk to somebody. Or, hey, do you have any advice? That's exactly what we were talking about, is that culture change of like, not only reaching out to us, but in general, just in the culture of the fire service or EMS or whatever in your engine house, is like noting a personality change or a behavior change or something that just seems off before everyone else notices. Because that's the thing, is if we can notice it before others, we're getting way ahead of the game. Because most of the time, like, I thought I was normal until like they fixed me in Maryland. I thought it was none of it was my fault. But it's like looking back at it now, it's like, holy shit, those people probably seen that shit way before I did. But now I look at other people and I'm bad about it, and I get yelled at all the time, especially at home, about therapying people. Because I have all the answers now. But I can notice those subtle little just people I work with or people I'm around on a regular basis. Like, I can tell when you're having an off day.
Right.
And I'm going to be the first one to call you out on it.
Yeah.
And even if it's me coming up and just saying, hey, you need a hug. Like, that's my way of saying, hey, I can tell something's not right. Physical contact. But
We just like that anyway.
Well, yeah.
Come on, let's be real.
Yeah. We can shout out Meg right now. We can.
I think
She
there's
watches all of them, so.
I think there's a pretty popular T-shirt that says "Bring fist fights back to the firehouse," and that's probably
Yeah,
a
I see
whole
that.
topic on its own. But more importantly, why don't we bring some hugs back to the firehouse? And I think that's what that has changed in our culture, whether we want it or not. But just giving another guy a big hug and maybe holding on just a little too long is a very nonverbal way of saying, "I got you."
Yeah.
And I'm happy to see him back.
I think too
Oh,
from that
man.
point, like I've always felt like as the company officer, the formal leader, the captain of the house or whatever, like your guys should know that like you love them. And that's a big word, right? Fire service is hard to say. Like, I love you, brother. But like you should be able to say that and mean it. Like, you guys should know I love you guys. And going back to what we were talking about with that relationship, that's a huge part of that, because when you create that and your guys know that, they're going to be more apt to bring things to you when they're going through a hard time. So like you said earlier, we can kind of stem it off before it evolves into this much bigger situation that now we're dealing with.
I think I really like the word "love you" threw out there, because I think it's a different perspective of that terminology of like, I can go home and say I love my family, but at no point in time do I entrust my life to my family. I'm not running into burning buildings with my
Yeah.
wife and kids. I'm not running into vehicle accidents on the side of the highway with my wife and kids.
Right.
But when we talk about, loving your crew or, actually being a family, it's like, it's a whole different version of emotional connection and trauma bonding, if we want to go down that route, of like, not only do I love everything about you and I want you to be the safest, but I also am walking into a burning building with you, knowing that I can trust you to get me out if something goes wrong, and vice versa. And I think that's a perspective that when we, especially like our district and other districts, I know it's very prevalent everywhere, is like, you're with a crew, you have a really strong bond, and then all of a sudden they do the yearly shakeup and you're with a whole new set of people,
Yeah.
and you're starting from scratch. But I think from a perspective, if we keep down that train of where we're doing crew shakeups and things like that and breaking those bonds, is if we already have the culture switch, and that's a known thing. So whether I'm working for you or you or you, and no matter who I'm with that year, if we're all on the same page of how we want our team dynamics and our culture to be, whether I'm working with you or you, I'm going to have the same perspective or
Yeah.
the same expectations when I walk in the door with
A
that.
lot of the other things fall into place, and like having that relationship doesn't change the minimum standard. It doesn't change the expectation. It doesn't change the level of discipline. It just makes some of those things a little easier because
Yeah.
you're already on the same path.
And in worst case scenario, like Robben knows, I'll just call him in the middle of the night and just, hey, yeah, you ready for the next problem?
And I think that's what where we're at now in our department is we're at that point. I can go in and work on a different shift and feel like just as much as family as I do on my current shift. And that goes apart all boards, every station we have. I mean, there's very few people that honestly, there's probably nobody I don't get along with or won't have a conversation with or won't go into anything with them because I trust them encompassly. And coming into this department and, the family attitude, and it really is. I mean, we come in at shift change, there's hugs going around everywhere, and, people you don't see, I'm in in that swing position where pretty much I'm at a different station almost every shift. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I go into our one house and, get a hug from the crew going off, or go into our 2 house, get hugs from the crew going off. And that's essentially what we're at and what we're building and what we've kept building to. We're going back to the culture reference in the beginning of it. It's not only the culture of how we attack and how we play and how we fight fires, it's the culture of us and how we build and how we're able to build those relationships with each other and really go out and be the family of each other and have that love to put around.
Yeah, I think that makes a huge difference in my career. Nate came to my crew, and I had never really met the dude. Just he was always doing the right thing.
If you can call someone perfect,
It's
but
the epitome over here on
I don't want to say
Far
perfect,
from
but
it.
damn near
Far from it.
close.
Well, what was funny is like, even though there was no arrogance to doing the right thing, and so I learned a ton from him working with him, and then he became my lieutenant, and it was amazing to watch. He had everything going for him, but he still counted on the team.
Oh, yeah.
Like there was times that he was unsure, but he made that known and he put it back on us as a team. So I think a lot of times that's important too, is whether we're an informal leader or an officer or a chief officer, it's important to say things like, I don't know, or guys, this is bad. Acknowledge, something is bad. But show your softer sides as a leader and as an officer, and when you need that help. I think there's a lot of times that we promote up into ranks, and all of a sudden, like Mike said earlier, I have to have all these answers. And I'll be the first to tell you, even before I was an officer, when somebody brings something to me, I would give you an answer, but I would also tell you, I don't know if that's right. And, one of the other things Nate and I did for a long time working the crew on crew together was like, let's get it wrong first.
Yeah.
So when we were training, we would try our ideas knowing that there's a good chance that it could go wrong or will go wrong. So then we know for sure that's not the thing that we're doing and move on to get to the right thing.
Yeah.
So that's something, around the Firehouse to build off of is don't be afraid to be wrong. Break that stigma of I'm bulletproof, I've got this. Just really open up and open back to your crews and to those around you for that help.
Well, I was going to just reiterate exactly what you just said. It's okay to be wrong in what we do when we're in the training environment. It's okay to make those mistakes, and that's why we train and that's why we build, is so we can be wrong there. So when the time comes down to it, Mr. and Mrs. Smith need us, we're there to be right. And that's what it is. And sometimes it's not always going to go right, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure and mitigate that situation to make it right. But accepting that you are human, you have faults, and is such a good aspect to look at personally, and being that humble, and that is where you need to be able to grow as a person.
I think it's funny you said human. My therapist asks me every session, I think, do you remember you're human? that you're not a robot, or that you're not going to do all this? And because she's always drilling me about the amount of things I do. And
Like finishing 6 years of school in 3 months.
it was 2 years. I'm not done yet. My master's will be done in July. In 11, I'll do that in 11 months. But it's no big deal.
No big deal.
MBD. It's just
big deal.
humble brag.
Yeah,
I mean, whatever.
Humble brag. If you have ADHD, use it to your ability. Figure out how to finish things
Use your
really fast.
superhero.
Yeah.
Your superpower.
It's a superpower when you can utilize it right. But I think that's a huge thing that people forget, especially in an officer role. And this is me being a private picking on officers, because I've never held an official officer role. I've been in the training part of it, but I never held those official roles. I just trained new people and precepted and helped pick new hire, whatever. But sometimes I feel like we get these officers, and not any particular reason or anything going on. It's just like you just want to smack them across the face and be like, man, you're human. Like, we're all human here. You don't have all the answers. I don't expect you to have all the answers. I don't expect you to fix every problem. But you have 2 to 4 other people in your engine house, if you're talking about where we're at, that are more than willing to help figure this out.
Yep.
Like,
And
let me tell you, 3, sitting here, 4 brains here are going to come up with way more ideas. They might not be good ideas, but we're going to come up with ideas.
Yeah.
Versus that one brain's going to come up with whatever idea it is, and it might not be the answer.
And it goes into, not only do we have 4 people in our engine house, 4 additional people in our engine house, we have this Rolodex, or this spider web of this encompassing, not only do we know people in our area, we know people across the state and people across the country where, okay, this is odd, this is weird. I don't know, you don't know, you don't know, you don't know. We got people we can call, hey, I'm going to text this guy or this girl and figure out what we can know and what we can pull on there. Maybe they were able to pull something in and able to help us in that situation.
Well, I think Robben nailed it too when he gives his answers. It's like, I don't know if this is the right answer, but here's an answer.
Yeah, and we're going to figure it out.
But we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like, as a team, we're going to figure it out. And even if it's a personal issue where you're going to one individual, you're going through some shit, you come to me and you're like, hey, this is what I'm going on. I might have an answer for you. It might not be the right one, but I have an answer. But guess what? I'm going to stand next to you the entire time until we figure it out.
Yep.
But me knowing you and you knowing me, you're going to come to me knowing, hey, he's going to help, but we're going to still have to do the work together.
Yeah.
And I think as a crew and as a culture, like, knowing, again, we bring that family atmosphere. You got to be able to be a family. You got to be able to work together. And we all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. Some of us are more crazy than the other ones. So you got to play off those things. And we do fall. I think we fall short in that aspect on officers. Is they have that mindset of like, I am the know all be all, not as a you know, a God complex, but as a everyone's looking to me to be this ultimate leader. And it's like, no, I just want to respect you and trust you and have fun. Outside of that, let me operate unless I'm doing something stupid. Call me out.
Right.
But otherwise, like, I know you know what you're doing. You know what I know I'm doing. Let's just go.
I think sometimes officers can fall into this, and I'm speaking for myself too, because like I feel like I've battled it before, right? They fall into this idea of I have to have all the answers, this obligation, right, that is placed on you of you're the guy, you have to have all the answers. The reality is there's a lot of bonding that comes from the humility aspect of things. There's a lot of relationship building that can come from going to your guys and being like, I don't know, this is a weird situation. We got to figure this out together. And I think especially when you look at the new generation of the fire service, they crave that even more than before. Like before, when we first got into the field, I think it was easy for people to get away with, you know, I'm the captain of this engine house and this is how we're going to do it. It's going to be A, B, C, and D. And it was starting to evolve as we were kind of coming into it. Now it's really taken over is a lot of people ask why. And they don't ask why to be condescending, arrogant, or to question it. They ask why because they're genuinely curious. They want to know. They want to learn. And I think the humility part of things as an officer, when you have the ability to go to that person and be like, well, here's why, here's some of the answers, or maybe I don't have the answer to that. Let's go find out together. That creates that bond. And those are things that you can't, those are missed opportunities every time you don't do that as an officer. You're missing the opportunity to build a stronger relationship with that individual.
Let's go find the answer together. Even if as an officer you already know the answer, is huge in just showing people how you got to the why. And the early fire service was built largely on experience. And, you know, as the fire service continues to evolve, we're going to see, you know, just decreases overall in, you know, that experience level. The number of fires a lot of places is not going up. It's going down. So the experience that we get, you know, sometimes might be a first for everybody. You need another lozenge?
Yeah, I might need another lozenge.
But when it comes to experience, I think now in the fire service, you are going to lean a lot more on your team and the experience that they have. And
I got a lozenge.
what do you got?
He brought snacks.
They're gonna sponsor the show.
Brought to you by Quest.
So when we talk about experience and really to tie like the entire episode together, if you're sitting and listening to this and wondering how do I make my department better? And one, we've talked about, start with your crew, but also let the department know the direction that you think you should go. So whether you lead your crew by example of leaning on each other's experiences and shared experiences to be a better crew, how you guys converse with each other, treat each other, inspire each other, and motivate each other, let that be an example of, hey, you know, 3A, they got a good thing going on. And I'll tell you, the easiest barometer in any fire department is if there is an open shift on your shift, whether one of your guys needs trade or they need to fill overtime or sick time in your engine house and it gets picked up quick, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's the easiest barometer for whether your crew's on the right track. Is if the holes in your engine house are getting picked up quick and guys are showing up ready to work. So, you know, you have to look at your district or your department or your area and say, okay, where do we want to be? One, you got to set standards and expectations. And the unfortunate part about kind of mental health and motivation and those things in the fire service is it's not measurable. It's not something we can test you on. So, you know, the best thing that we can do is just inspire you as an entire crew to be better, to inspire your department to be better. And it's going to take time. And a lot of people are not going to like it at first because you have to get into those mushy feelings. But, you know, especially with the generation behind us, when we show those kids that are coming into the fire service, one, it's okay to talk about your feelings, and two, it's okay to be wrong. You're going to inspire them to come to you with their problems, whether you're an informal leader or an officer or a chief so that we don't end up down the crisis path.
Well, not even mental health, but just in general, as a new guy's perspective, like you said, coming to you with their problems or their shortcomings or their failures or they're not understanding something. Again, if they're comfortable, they're going to come to you when it's a minor inconvenience to the job. They're not going to show up to a fire saying, I've been screwing up this hose load since day one and I was afraid to say anything. Now shit hit the fan, it's time to operate. And now they have to tell you, I don't know how to do this. Which one? That's not the time or the place. But if they're comfortable coming to you with anything or have that emotion, I can come, they can come, I can come, whoever it is can come up and say, hey man, I'm struggling with X, Y, and Z. I know I should know these things. I just can't figure it out. Can we work on this? Versus if we have that old school culture, the old school mentality where if I were to come to an older captain and say, hey, I can't figure out how to pull a hose off the truck, I'm going to get reamed.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not know this? And they're not going to, but that's the problem is, and don't get me wrong, in the fire service, even if I come to you with a problem, I know you're going to help me fix it. You're probably still going to make fun of me or read me about it anyway.
Looking for positivity.
Exactly.
Right.
But you're going to help me fix the problem. Whereas I think people have that notion still that if they come to you with a problem, they're not going to get a solution. They're just going to get told, well, what the fuck's wrong with you? Why can't you figure it out? Whereas I think you built that comfortability with being able to come to you with a minor problem, not when it's a minor problem that becomes major because you have to operate.
And that's part of it, and piggybacking off what you guys said and changing a culture or being that culture. I think it's small things that start it. I mean, it's the small rudder that steers the big ships. Remember, I'm stealing it from other fire service leadership stuff. And, positivity in yourself breeds positivity in others. Having that and embracing as an officer that learning atmosphere of let's figure this out together. And being that person, you come in and giving that hug on shift or coming into shift, going off shift, whatever you need to do. Those are 3 small things you can do every day to start to make an impact on how a culture shifts in the fire service. Because with that figuring out together, that figures out the why. That hug changes the demeanor, and that positivity breeds other positivity throughout the career.
Well, I think people don't really understand too, as we circle back to that, we're all human. Humans are great at path of least resistance and chameleons in their environment.
Yeah.
Comfort. They want comfort. They don't want uncomfortable situations. They don't want to be the lone man out. But that's the thing is if we have one individual, like you said, positivity is contagious. Guess what's more contagious? Negativity. Our brains are wired for negativity.
I mean, that's why we watch NASCAR and bull riding, right?
Well, you have to watch them fall and crash. Yeah, we don't watch see them win. But that's the thing is like if we have that one individual that's willing to make that change, whether it's that informal or formal, and it's going to take somebody, and this is where I hate to say it's going to take somebody that has that role. It's the person that's the brand new private that is coming in that nobody knows. If they're the most positive person on the crew, it's probably not going to change the other 4 senior guys. It's probably going to eventually change their positivity. You have to know those informal or those senior guys or that formal leader, knowing that like, hey, this kind of falls on me. Like, why? Because I'm big on, I get into the negativity realm just like anyone else. But I still do. I try to be the most positive person ever, but I still have a lot of buried down anger and things like that. So it doesn't just go away. But I catch myself in those realms too, and I remind myself like I got to do better. Like not just for the others around me, but for my own motivation. Like if I'm negative and I'm affecting other people, I'm affecting myself tenfold. If I'm doing something enough to affect the person sitting next to me, that is drastically affecting my own mentality.
Sure.
So if I can remain to be positive, it's going to also build me up because I might be in a hole. I've been in a hole the last couple of weeks. I have no idea why. I've just been down on this little slump, and I just keep trying to remind myself, like, what the hell do I have to be a slump about? And I just try to be positive. But also, like, it just on that realm of being able to call out your own shit and know what you're on. We were at a training yesterday, and I made a comment to one of our new guys, and I didn't get to finish my comment. It was going to be super funny, and it didn't work out. Like, I got interrupted, like, halfway through, and I didn't finish it, and I sounded like a complete asshole because I didn't get to finish it.
You got to call him later.
Well, I know.
I got to tell you the rest. The punchline was really good.
So I don't know this new guy that well. Like, I don't even know his phone number. I'm pretty sure besides he looks like he's 12, I couldn't pull him out of the lineup. But I called one of his crew members that I'm really good friends with, and I was like, hey, man, this has been bothering me since yesterday. And this was on my way out here today. And I call him like, can you tell him the rest of my joke? Like, please, because I don't want him to think I'm an asshole. Like, I am an asshole, but I don't want him to think I'm already an asshole. Like, let him build his own opinion. So I literally went out of my way because I noted that made me feel bad, so that had to have made them feel bad. Like, man, I just made this guy feel like a piece of shit, and I didn't mean to. It was supposed to be funny. But I took it upon myself, mainly because it was bothering me, to make that phone call to say, hey, man, I was trying to be funny. I didn't get to finish. Like, and that person that I called was like, laugh their ass off that I called to ask them to do it. But they just like, yeah, I'll have a talk with them and let them know, like, you're not a dick. I was just an asshole today. But
that self-awareness is huge.
Exactly.
You know,
the introspect and that internal look we talk about a lot.
So going into that too a little bit is nobody got into this career to be a piece of shit. Nobody wants to be that piece of shit.
Yeah.
You know, we all got into this career to do something good, and somehow you lose it along the way. And it may be, you know, that new guy has a positive attitude that changes a little bit of that culture and that crew and helps build that. But it's still got to be put forward, and maybe they do fall into that lull of being that. But nobody really got in here for wanting to be that.
Right.
And you know, finding that way to change a mindset is the grand scheme of the goal. Maybe a meaning of life, who knows? But everybody wants to do good in their own way, and it's just making them comfortable to come out of their own world to do that positive change.
I don't like silence, so I'm gonna just jump right in.
I was gonna go on like the you know, if you notice somebody is being a real piece of shit,
Call them out.
you call them out.
Oh.
But I would also ask, like, how long is this gonna go on? Like, you need a couple shifts of being like this. You know, like, I think sometimes once you help them identify it, but also give them that room of, like, you know, they've found their comfort, and their comfort's probably in negativity or doing less, or, you know, they're mad about they got slighted in some way, and that happens in fire departments all across America. You know, things don't go your way. You didn't get the new shiny toy, or, you know, in some cases you didn't get promoted in the order that you thought you were going to, and that's on the table. But you know, I think when Mike talks about being human, it's also acceptable to let that person be human. But like, let's you know, Dr. Phil always says someday is not a date on a calendar. So if you look at a calendar, you will never see someday. It's a date. So, you know, hey man, I'll let you, you know, just really wallow in this self-pity that you got going on. But, you know, next shift, you think it'd be better? You know, see what their response is. Maybe they need 2 shifts of, you know, astronaut training in the recliners and, you know, not getting on it. But try, and when you see negative things going on, like, try and put a date on it. Like, how long are we going to do this? It's just like the coffee cup conversation. We will let you complain until that cup of coffee is empty.
Do I carry a jug?
So, and I mean, it may be some days,
yeah.
some days it may be this 32-ounce cup of complaints, and then, you know, other days it's just 8 ounces and move on. But when we deal with negativity in the firehouse or in the department, let's try, you know, as a profession, let's try and put a date on how long are we going to let this go on. And, you know, you give people fair warning. Hey, I noticed you're being a real piece of shit. When are we going to wrap this up? And it'll probably be faster than you think. And that's being a real bully for positivity. And, you know, I'm not trying to be a dick, but I'm just saying, here's what I'm seeing, and I would like it to stop. And sometimes it helps them see it as well.
I like that though, because there's a level of just
Accountability.
sheer honesty with it, right? And
Mhm.
accountability. There's a level of relationship that you have to have with that person, because I might be able to do that to you, right? I might be able to come to you and be like,
I think you
hey
have.
man, here's what I've noticed. When are we going to finally get past this? So there's a lot of different aspects to the whole leadership gamut of what you're describing that is so important. And I think it goes full circle to what we talked about earlier too. You know, that's huge. I like that. There's a lot of different layers to that. As simplistic as it sounds, there's a lot of layers to that conversation right there.
Another layer of that thing is, you know, maybe they are, and maybe you're out there pulling hose and they're wanting to be that piece of shit, not want to be that negative outlook. not wanting to get out there and do it? Is it because they're the senior guy that's been there 15, 20 years and maybe they never really learned how to do that? And it involves a conversation of like, hey, what's really going on here? And, is there something going on that you're afraid you don't know? And that's what's happened in the fire service over the last 10, 15 years is some people have been promoted into positions without really knowing where they came from and how to do the job where they came from. And it goes in all ends of it, whether the senior guy, they're the lieutenant, they're the captain, they're a chief somewhere on some department of nowhere that really never had the experience to build. And now they're in a position where, oh shit, I'm supposed to know something. And what do I bring to the table and how do you get them to learn into that? And that's part of being that leader, that informal leader, that leadership role is figuring out how to bring that to them and
to have those hard conversations with somebody, but present it in a very compassionate manner.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Well, I think I didn't even think about that aspect of it because when I brought up that conversation earlier about the new guy coming to you saying he doesn't know something, I couldn't imagine after, I'm going on whatever, 14 or 15 years and like, I have a basic skill that I'm supposed to know and I don't know it and I got to come to my captain and say, yeah, that's probably going to be more detrimental than if I can say, well, I'm still new, so that's why I haven't figured it out. But
What's great?
like, hey, I've been doing this 14 years and I don't know how to do this.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
What's
They
great
made
right
this
now
far.
is it's a great place to tell somebody you don't know what to do because the fire service has changed so much in how we're doing stuff. We're back to the old ways because we have studies behind what we used to do that shows this is why we were doing it and this is how it works now. Because the fire service and FSRI and NIST and all that stuff has these studies out where if Nick's been in the service for a long time, didn't know how to flow water down a hallway or put it in the right spot, and now there's a study, hey, as an officer, they kicked this out, let's go find some information. We can teach you how to do this, this, and this, and better hose mechanics and how to put out a fire more efficiently. And that's a good jump on point. I think that's a lot of what we have coming on because there's been so many changes. The older generation or the people who've been in it for a while that aren't, maybe, I didn't really know how to do this, are able to find in and fall into a place where, okay, now I can learn this from the basics because in all reality, just like everything, we have to know the basics the best.
Yeah.
And the basics is pulling that line off a truck, laddering that window, venting that house and forcing that door. And that's the basics that gets us through our career.
Mm-hmm. I would circle back too on Robben's comment about calling somebody out on their negativity or their mood or their coming in being that recliner jockey or whatever it be. It's like
recliner snipers.
Recliner sniper, sorry. Proper terminology. It's in a book.
I stole that from
but it's funny you said it that way though, because if we do that full circle and we go back, do you know that individual? Are they normally like that?
Yeah.
Is this a new behavior, a new mood, a new tone? It may be you calling them out will give them that comfortability to say, oh yeah, I'm being lazy today because I haven't slept in 4 days because my wife left or my kids are this.
Here's
or
what
that.
I'm actually
Here's what's actually bringing my mood down. It's not because I want to come in and be a piece of shit or come in and be lazy. I'm normally not, but now that we know our crews or that we're working on those open conversations, is like those relationships, you notice that change, and you call them out on it and give a timeline, but it might open that dialogue for them to say,
opens the door.
yeah, like, hey, this isn't like a 2-day issue. This is a very large issue.
Right.
But now that I know you've noticed, I notice, and let's come up with solutions.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're going that full circle of, sometimes getting people to be positive can in turn fix another problem just by having open dialogue.
Having new guys helps the old guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it too, is you do have that lull where that guy maybe didn't learn something going through his career, and you have a new guy, you have to teach how to do this, and I could sneak in the back and figure this out. And, I remember how to do that. Let's do this instead. And in finding what, those guys, to get them even more bought in, is finding what those guys are good at, because everybody's good at something.
Yep.
And letting them take over part of it, to have part of that buy-in for the crew, and maybe they can be that voice of reason on that end of it. And now they look like they're not, and they can be part of that crew as well and have that theory and that testing, those hypotheses and all that shit on the fire scene.
Big words.
Yeah.
We're still dumb firemen at the end of the day.
Well, I only cussed like 3 times so far.
It's this episode 5. I don't think we've used hypothesis yet.
Yeah, we use CPU. That's a big. That's
3
3 letters, but it means a big word.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but
It means a big word.
Computer processing units.
Oh,
Sorry, it's this elevator in my
Yeah.
head just ran different floors every
Yeah.
once in a while.
No, I actually was kind of astonished at this episode of like how calm it was and on track. I expected this to go much different than what it did.
Oh, man.
It was awesome, but I think we definitely went down a different path. Like there was a lot of serious and passion in it. But it just goes to show, like when we picked this group, it was strictly off the mentalities, and I thought it would be very high energy, all over the place.
I think it was still high energy.
Well,
Mike was pretty red the entire time.
Yeah.
It's because I finally warmed up. I've been cold outside all day. I lost all that pale skin.
So,
It is cold outside.
But I think it just shows that the passion that is underlying in people, and that when you, I mean, could you imagine having the same conversation around the kitchen table at the Firehouse?
Yeah.
Like, we do that all the time, and the passion's there, but then you put it in front of a camera and you see people get serious. But that passion came out, and it was awesome to see that the perspectives, and then also that we could stay on one topic for more than 30 seconds.
And it's kind of weird
Yeah.
for us. We sat
Yeah.
at the table the other day. I swear to God, we hit 30 subjects in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the camera does help kind of focus things, because you do feel things like going off the rails, and like Mike said, shift change the other day. I wanted to time it so bad, and I needed to, like, I was going to set a timer in one hand and then like a pitch clicker in the other for different subjects, and it was absolutely wild how far we got from the original subject in 15 minutes. But I think when you're on camera and you're really trying to get a point across, and it's so easy to fill an hour with things that you care about and the things that can make meaningful change in the fire service. And that's a lot of what drives this podcast is, all three of these guys in this room I've spent hours with in the gym, and we've already had these conversations for hours on end. We could do a long form podcast.
Workout session solving problems.
Solving world's problems in the gym, one lift at a time.
I don't know that we've gotten anywhere with them, but like we said, we've seen an enormous culture change in where we work, and it's from every angle. Whether you have retirement, whether you have turnover, whether you have a new chief, when those opportunities for change happen within your department, make sure that you are taking advantage of moving things in the right direction. When it comes your way. A lot of people underestimate how long a 30-year career is. And, in most cases, your fire chief can change 5 or 6 times in a 30-year career. You could change departments 5 or 6 times. All of those are new opportunities. You get 5 or 6 new guys in a year.
You can Benjamin Button your career.
Yeah, all of those are opportunities to make things better. But you have to be aware that they're out there.
Yeah. So no, I love the conversation today, and
We didn't even talk about strategies and tactics at all.
that's a whole other episode.
It's a different podcast.
Yeah, we're already at our time limit. I don't think they want to listen for any longer. So, no, I appreciate you guys coming out, and so I've got 2 things to end this with. So we keep using the word bully for positivity. So I want to do we did it last episode, and I want to continue to do it with that final thoughts from everybody in the room. But I want to call it final thoughts of your bully for positivity. So we're going to go around the table, and we're going to give one positive bully and be your final thought from today's episode of what you would want to portray to our audience of your way of bullying for positivity. Nate, I'm looking at you, but you don't have to start.
Hey man, I'll start.
All right.
I'll start. I would just say my final thought would be one person can inspire a shift. One shift can change an entire crew. And then one entire crew and shift can change an entire department. So be that one person. Start with that one person. Be that positive influence. Be that influential, informal leader. Be that formal leader that people can go to, that they know you're going to be able to be honest with them, be able to transparent with them, open up, build that relationship. Start with yourself and let it just kind of evolve from there, because that's truly how our culture has kind of evolved. Is it started with a handful of people that had the building blocks. We created the foundation, and then we are building it into what we want it to be today. So start with that one person.
I would say identify the negative things, and then put a time on it. When are we going to stop complaining? When are we going to stop being a piece of shit? Make it a date on the calendar. Hey, New Year's coming, so let me inspire you for next year to not be a big piece of shit. and really get things done in 26. So put a date on the calendar and move forward.
I was going to add on to what he said.
It's my turn. It's my turn. We go in order. Mine's short. Just
I'm
remember.
I'm going to forget.
All right, go ahead.
No, I'm just kidding.
Go. So my only statement for my final thought is remember to be human. We're all human.
You guys have all stolen my shit. So
That's
back
why it's
on
hard
to go
first.
to piggyback on what you said and having a bitch session, and this is what I did with my old crew way back when we had a bitch session. We had to go to a different station to use a gym. So we went into the gym, and that was our hour-long bitch session while we were lifting weights. A lot of blue time. We literally bitched for an hour, and we came back and we felt better. I mean, and that's essentially, having that time limit on your bitch session.
Yeah.
And it's always bitching up. You never bitch down. But
Sounds like negativity in motion.
Yeah.
That would be another catchphrase.
Yeah.
If you're going to be negative, make sure you're moving.
Yeah, you got to burn the anger out.
And it's just, my thought is the positivity. The positivity can change so much, and you don't realize it. It's just having that attitude of being, I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm going to be an agent of change in your own head, and be that first one on the engine bay floor doing your truck checks, being positive about it, be that first one there for training, being that one and having that happy attitude, being the guy that cracks the joke at 3:00 in the morning when you're running somebody that fell for the 7th time that day who's on a lift assist, and having that cognitive ability to make light of that situation, and turn the radio on at 4:00 in the morning and have that DJ jam session, karaoke session down the radio as you're cruising in an ambulance because you've not slept yet, and it's just part of that day.
Mike's clearly worked with me before. Overnight DJing, jam session.
Well, the problem is I think we're too much alike.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And we're as his hair continues to lead the chat,
So
he's starting to look more and more like me. think
I
it's
had
gonna
an
get
idea.
confusing here soon.
I had an idea of what we were going to do, what I was going to do for this when we were going to film this originally, like 2 weeks ago, because I was supposed to be in Texas at the time, and I was going to shave my head and surprise you guys on the podcast by just pulling my hat off.
I don't think you would have been able to tell us apart. We could have both worn matching flannels.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, we are over time, as always. I don't think we've ever ended early.
Short on hair and time.
Short on hair and time. So, no, I do appreciate everybody listening in, watching us on YouTube, however you view our podcast. I think this is a great thing, and I love everything about it. And I hope you guys all get something out of it. And as always, if you have questions, concerns, ideas, topics, guests, anything that you have to help us provide better podcasts, please let us know. You can either email us at breakthestigmainc.com or breakthestigmainc@gmail.com. All of our socials are Break the Stigma Inc. Check them out. Check out this podcast. It is on YouTube and all major platforms for music and podcast. As always, remember to wash your cup, put it in the dishwasher because people don't do that, and push your chair in. And everyone have a wonderful day.
Today's episode was sponsored by Nestwell Homes and Hardscapes. So if you're in the St. Louis area and you need a new roof or some stonework, or you want to improve your house in some way, nestwellhomes.com. Look them up on Instagram. I believe it's just Nestwell Homes on Instagram as well. They do some great stuff, quality work, and they got great guys that work for them.
And
Put it to you this
all
way.
first responder owned.
Yeah,
Put it to you this way, I trust them to do my parents' house. They did a roof for my parents, siding for my parents, and stonework for my parents. So
I'm too far
top
out.
quality group.
All righty.
Break.
Break.